The royal bell rang 3 times, not to celebrate, to announce judgment. By sunset, Luna Vivian would stand before every alpha king, queen, prince, and princess, attending the once-in-a-generation gathering of heirs. Before the final ceremony ended, Alpha King Marcus intended to redefine the role of the royal Luna, believing his compassionate queen had never truly become the leader the kingdom deserved. If that declaration was made, her honor would be diminished before every royal house on the continent, and the decision could never be undone. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments where you are listening from. Your support helps bring more unforgettable werewolf romance stories to listeners everywhere. Marcus stood alone upon the palace balcony, overlooking thousands of arriving guests. Golden banners danced in the morning wind. Royal carriages crossed the ancient stone bridge one after another. Every future ruler of every allied kingdom had arrived. Behind him, Vivian quietly arranged fresh flowers along the grand hall without requesting servants. She greeted every frightened child with the same gentle smile she offered every king. Marcus watched silently. He admired her kindness. He respected her heart. Yet he still believed kindness alone could never guide a kingdom. By nightfall, he intended to tell the entire royal assembly exactly that. Neither of them noticed dozens of young princes and princesses secretly watching Vivian from the palace courtyard below. Each child smiled with unmistakable recognition. Each waited for only one moment, the moment they could finally run to the woman they had never stopped calling. Mother, the mother no crown ever saw long before the royal court questioned Luna Vivian's worth. Children already knew her name, not because she wore a crown, because she always arrived when they were afraid. While the nobles measured influence by alliances, banquets, and political victories, Vivian measured success differently. A hungry child who smiled after eating, a frightened little prince who finally fell asleep. A lonely princess who laughed for the first time after losing her mother. Those were the victories she quietly carried inside her heart. Few people ever noticed. She preferred it that way. Every week, before dawn painted the eastern mountains gold, Vivian slipped beyond the palace gates wearing an ordinary gray cloak instead of royal silks. She visited villages rebuilding after years of border conflicts. Many homes had been restored. Many families had not. War always ended before grief did. In one small village, an elderly baker greeted her with warm bread. "Your Majesty," Vivian smiled gently. "Today I am simply Vivian." She spent the morning serving breakfast to children whose parents had never returned from battle. She learned every name, every birthday, every favorite story. One little boy refused to eat. Vivian sat beside him without speaking. Minutes passed. Kindly he whispered, "My father promised he would come home." Vivian never offered false hope. Instead, she held his small hand. "Then we will honor that promise by helping you become the kind man he dreamed you would be." The child nodded. For the first time in days, he finished his meal. That evening, no royal proclamation mentioned where the Luna had spent her day. The court assumed she had been resting. The nobles assumed she lacked ambition. Neither assumption was true. Months later, a diplomatic summit brought royal families from 5 kingdoms together. The discussions lasted for hours. Trade, territory, military cooperation. Inside the council chamber, adults debated the future. Outside, their children waited alone. Princess Seraphine Frostvale sat quietly beneath a willow tree. Hiding tears she refused to let anyone see. Her mother had passed away only weeks earlier. Servants offered toys, musicians offered songs. Nothing reached her. Vivian quietly approached, carrying 2 cups of warm honey tea. She sat beside the young princess without introducing herself. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Vivian looked toward the clouds. When I was little, I used to believe the brightest stars were letters sent by people who loved us. Seraphine looked up. My mother liked watching stars. Vivian smiled softly. Then perhaps she still watches them with you. The little princess leaned gently against Vivian's shoulder. She remained there until sunset. Years later, she would remember that afternoon more clearly than the royal treaty signed inside the palace. Another winter, another kingdom. Prince Rowan Ironclaw fell dangerously ill while traveling through the northern mountains. The royal physicians feared the freezing fever would claim his life before morning. Vivian never left his bedside. She cooled his forehead, prepared herbal remedies, read ancient stories until sunrise. For 3 consecutive nights, she barely slept. When Rowan finally opened his eyes, the first face he saw was hers. You stayed, he whispered. Vivian brushed his hair away from his forehead. Children should never wake up alone. No historian recorded that sentence. Rowan never forgot it. Another year passed. Political unrest erupted during a peace celebration in Silverwood. Panicked crowds surged through the streets. Separated from her royal escort, young Princess Mira became trapped beneath a collapsing market archway. Without hesitation, Vivian ran into the chaos. She shielded the little girl with her own body until royal guards reached them. When Marcus later asked how she had bruised her shoulder, she simply answered, "I slipped." He believed her. She never corrected him. The bruise healed, the memory remained. Not every child she helped wore a crown. Many wore patched clothing, some owned nothing at all. Whenever palace kitchens prepared elaborate banquets, Vivian quietly instructed the cooks to prepare additional meals. The leftovers never spoiled. They reached orphanages before sunrise. Whenever royal tailors finished ceremonial robes, she requested the remaining fabric. Small winter coats soon appeared in villages no noble ever visited. Whenever traveling merchants lost everything during storms, she purchased blankets anonymously. No family ever learned who had paid. She never sought gratitude, only peace. Inside the royal court, Lady Celeste Voss watched all of this with growing contempt. A queen should negotiate treaties, she often remarked, not cradle children. Other nobles nodded. They measured greatness through influence. Vivian measured it through compassion. Marcus heard both perspectives. He defended Vivian whenever anyone questioned her character. Yet deep inside, he quietly wondered whether kindness alone could strengthen a kingdom facing uncertain times. He never spoke those doubts aloud. Still, they existed. One spring afternoon, Vivian entered the palace library searching for a history scroll. Instead, she discovered something unexpected. Hidden between 2 ancient books rested a small wooden carving of a wolf surrounded by tiny handprints. No signature, only a short inscription for the woman who always found us. She smiled, wondering which child had left it there. She carefully returned it to the shelf, never realizing it was only one of many quiet gifts scattered throughout the palace. Across distant kingdoms, other children had preserved similar memories: a pressed moonflower, a ribbon, a storybook, a handmade bracelet. Each kept for the same reason, each waiting for the same day, known to nearly everyone. Several Alpha Kings had privately witnessed Vivian's compassion during diplomatic crises over the years. None had forgotten. Without announcing it publicly, they made a silent promise to one another. If the day ever came when the world questioned Vivian's worth, the truth would not come from rulers. It would come from the children whose lives she had forever changed. The promise remained hidden, patient, waiting. As the gathering of heirs approached, royal banners filled the capital once again. Servants polished marble floors, musicians rehearsed ceremonial hymns, nobles prepared magnificent speeches. Marcus finalized the address he believed would strengthen the monarchy. Vivian prepared something much simpler: fresh flowers, warm meals, comfortable rooms for every visiting child. She personally checked each bedroom before sunset, straightened blankets, placed storybooks beside every bedside table, left handwritten notes wishing each young guest peaceful dreams. No servant understood why. No noble considered it important. Yet somewhere deep within the palace, dozens of young princes and princesses quietly recognized the familiar handwriting. Smiles spread across their faces. Tomorrow, they would finally see her again. And tomorrow, the entire world would discover that the greatest queen in the kingdom had already built an empire, not through fear, not through politics, but one child at a time. The day every royal heir called her mother, the grand hall of Ravencrest had never held so many crowns. Alpha kings, Luna queens, princes, princesses, royal advisors, generals, every kingdom that had survived the last great war had answered Marcus's invitation to the once-in-a-generation gathering of heirs. Crystal chandeliers illuminated polished marble. Silver banners bearing ancient wolf crests hung from towering stone pillars. Musicians performed softly from the upper gallery. Everything reflected perfect royal order. Marcus stood before the assembled rulers wearing ceremonial black armor trimmed with gold. Beside him stood Vivian. She wore no extravagant jewels, only a simple silver gown embroidered with tiny moonflowers. Lady Celeste noticed immediately. The Luna still dresses like a village healer. Several nobles chuckled quietly. Vivian heard them. She only smiled. Marcus looked toward the gathering. In another few minutes, he would deliver the speech he had spent weeks preparing. A speech about strengthening royal leadership. A speech explaining that compassion alone could never sustain an empire. He glanced briefly toward Vivian. She was not watching the nobles. She was watching the children. One little prince looked nervous. A young princess held tightly to her governess's hand. Vivian offered each of them the same reassuring smile. Somehow, every frightened child relaxed. Marcus noticed. He admired the gift, yet he still believed it belonged inside the nursery rather than the throne room. The master of ceremonies struck the marble floor with his silver staff. The gathering of heirs officially begins. The enormous doors opened, one by one. Royal heirs entered according to tradition. Prince Elias Stormfang, Princess Seraphine Frostvale, Prince Rowan Ironclaw, Princess Mira Silverwood, then dozens more. Each child walked beside royal guardians exactly as protocol demanded. Silence filled the chamber. Marcus stepped toward the podium. "My honored friends." Before he could continue, a tiny voice echoed across the hall. "Mother!" Another followed. "Mother!" Then another. "Mother!" Heads turned instantly. Prince Elias had broken formation. Without permission, he sprinted across the royal floor. Princess Seraphine followed. Then Prince Rowan, then Princess Mira. Within seconds, every royal heir abandoned their assigned guardians. Royal tutors shouted. Guards reached forward instinctively. No child stopped running. They all rushed toward the same person. Vivian. The Luna barely had time to kneel before the first little prince threw his arms around her neck. "I missed you." Princess Seraphine hugged her from behind. "I brought you the flowers you like." Prince Rowan laughed through happy tears. "I finally grew taller than you promised I would." Little Mira buried her face against Vivian's shoulder. "You came. I knew you would." The hall froze. More children arrived. 10:20, 30. The princes and princesses surrounded Vivian until her silver gown disappeared beneath tiny, embracing arms. Then, as though they had rehearsed it together for years, every child smiled. Every child looked up at her. Every child spoke the same word. Mother. The sound rolled through the great hall like sacred music. No one breathed. Marcus stared in complete disbelief. He had never seen any of these children meet outside formal ceremonies, yet they acted like brothers and sisters returning home. Vivian gently brushed tears from one little princess's face. "You have all grown so much," Prince Elias laughed. "That is what you always say." The King of Stormfang slowly stepped forward, his voice carried through the silent chamber. "When assassins infiltrated my castle 6 years ago, my son disappeared." Marcus looked toward him. The king smiled sadly. "We searched every room. We feared the worst." He turned toward Vivian. She found him hiding beneath a collapsed staircase. She stayed beside him until dawn. She told him stories because she knew he was too frightened to sleep. Prince Elias nodded. She never left. Another ruler stepped forward, Queen Helena of Frostvale. "When my daughter lost her mother, every physician treated her body. Only Vivian remembered to heal her heart." Princess Seraphine quietly took Vivian's hand. "She taught me that missing someone is another way of loving them." A third monarch spoke. King Aldrin Ironclaw. "My son survived the mountain fever because this Luna refused to rest. The royal physicians worked in shifts. She did not." Prince Rowan smiled proudly. "She promised I would see another sunrise." She kept her promise. More rulers came forward. Each carried another story, another forgotten act of kindness. Another life quietly changed. One remembered Vivian carrying frightened children through burning streets during a diplomatic uprising. Another recalled her comforting young hostages until peace negotiations succeeded. Another described how she secretly paid for medicine after border villages ran out of supplies. Not once had she asked for recognition, not once had she mentioned these moments to Marcus. Lady Celeste's face grew pale. This cannot be." An elderly Alpha Queen turned toward her. "It already is." Marcus felt something tighten inside his chest. Every memory returned, the unexplained bruises, the unexpected journeys, the nights Vivian returned exhausted but never complained. The mysterious gifts children occasionally sent to the palace. He had seen every clue. He had understood none of them. Vivian looked toward him. There was no accusation in her eyes, no triumph, only quiet compassion, as if she feared he might blame himself. That hurt more than anger ever could. Marcus slowly stepped away from the podium. His prepared speech slipped from his hand. The parchment drifted onto the marble floor. He no longer remembered a single word written upon it. His wolf stirred deep within his soul. For years, he had respected Vivian. Today, for the first time, he truly saw her. She had united kingdoms without signing treaties. She had earned loyalty without demanding it. She had become family to the children of rival nations without ever wearing anything except kindness. A warm current rushed through Marcus's chest. His wolf released a deep, instinctive purr that only a true mate could awaken. Vivian looked toward him. The ancient mate bond shimmered, like silver threads stretching invisibly between two hearts that had never truly drifted apart. Electric warmth spread through Marcus's body, not the fierce awakening of first love, the quiet awakening of understanding. He took one hesitant step toward her, then another, before he could speak. The massive palace doors burst open. A wounded royal guard stumbled inside. His armor was scorched. Blood stained one sleeve. He fell to one knee. "Your Majesty, pardon the interruption." His breathing shook. "The eastern walls have been breached." Gasps filled the chamber. The guard looked toward the gathered children. "They have come for the royal heirs, outside." The sound of war horns echoed across the capital, and somewhere beyond the palace gates, Duke Alaric Thorne smiled, exactly as he had planned. The first war horn echoed through the capital, then another, then 5 more. The joyful voices of children vanished beneath the rising alarm. Royal guards rushed toward the towering palace doors. Steel met stone. Commands thundered across the grand hall. "Seal every entrance! Protect the heirs! Move the children!" Panic threatened to spread. It never reached Vivian. She immediately knelt before the frightened princes and princesses. Her voice remained calm. "Everyone, look at me." Dozens of frightened eyes turned toward her. "Stay together. Hold hands. Do not run. You are safe." Almost instantly, the children obeyed, not because she was their queen, because she was the one person they trusted without question. Marcus watched in stunned silence. Even surrounded by danger, she was still protecting others before herself. The palace doors exploded inward, stone fragments scattered across the marble floor. Smoke rolled into the hall. From the darkness emerged Duke Alaric Thorne, elegant, unhurried, smiling. Hundreds of armored extremists followed behind him. General Magnus Dreadmore marched at their head. Their black banners bore no royal crest, only a crimson wolf devouring a crown. The entire hall fell silent. Alaric spread his arms. What a beautiful gathering. So many future rulers. So much leverage. He slowly surveyed the children gathered around Vivian. There she is. The woman who has quietly stolen every royal heir. Lady Celeste stepped forward, pale but defiant. "You promised no one would be harmed." Alaric glanced at her. "I lied." With a single motion, he pushed her aside. She collapsed against a marble pillar. "You served your purpose." His attention returned to Marcus. "Your Majesty, hand over every royal heir." "I will spare your kingdom," Marcus answered with only 2 words. "No," Alaric sighed dramatically. "I hoped you would choose wisely." General Magnus raised one armored hand. Crossbows, hundreds of them. Every bolt pointed toward the children. Sasps echoed throughout the hall. Several young princes instinctively hid behind Vivian. Little Princess Seraphine clutched Vivian's sleeve. "I'm scared." Vivian gently stroked her hair. "I know, but you are not alone." Marcus heard those words. Something inside him broke. For years, he had believed crowns protected kingdoms. Now he understood. "People like Vivian protected everything crowns existed to serve," General Magnus shouted. "Take the children!" the extremists charged. Marcus stepped forward. "No!" His voice rolled across the palace like thunder. Golden light erupted beneath his feet. The marble floor cracked. Ancient alpha markings ignited across the royal chamber. Every torch flared brighter. The air itself grew impossibly heavy. The Alpha King had released his full authority, not for conquest, for family. The nearest attackers froze. Their wolves whimpered. Several collapsed to one knee without understanding why. General Magnus roared, "Move!" None of them could. Marcus took another step. The invisible pressure intensified. Armor groaned. Weapons trembled. Breathing became difficult. Even veteran warriors struggled to remain standing. Alaric's smile faded. "So, You finally remember what truly matters. Marcus looked directly into his eyes. I remember. And I will never forget again. General Magnus let out a furious howl. His own wolf burst forward in a surge of spectral energy. A gigantic shadow wolf towered above the attackers. Its crimson eyes burned with hatred. Children screamed. Vivian did not retreat. Instead, she quietly opened her arms. "Stay behind me." Every prince and princess moved closer. Marcus turned sharply. "Vivian!" She looked at him. "They need both of us." Their eyes met. No words followed. None were needed. For the first time since becoming king and Luna, they moved as one. Marcus advanced. Vivian protected. Power and compassion. Strength and mercy. The balance the moon goddess had always intended. General Magnus charged. His spectral wolf lunged across the hall. Marcus met it head-on. Golden light collided with crimson darkness. The impact shook stained glass windows throughout the palace. Several shattered. Moonlight poured into the hall. Marcus's wolf emerged, enormous, majestic. Its silver-gold eyes blazed with unwavering resolve. The two spiritual guardians circled one another. Neither represented mere violence. They represented conviction. Magnus attacked first. The shadow wolf struck with brutal force. Marcus's guardian intercepted every assault. No unnecessary cruelty, no uncontrolled rage, only disciplined strength. Behind them, Alaric slipped quietly toward the children. A concealed blade appeared beneath his cloak. He smiled. "If I cannot control kingdoms, I will control their future." He lunged toward little Prince Elias. Vivian saw him, without hesitation. She stepped between the blade and the child. Marcus turned. Time seemed to stop. The knife never reached Vivian. A royal guard intercepted Alaric's arm, then another, then another. The first guard knelt. For the Luna, a second lowered his weapon before Vivian. For the mother of the heirs, within seconds, dozens of palace guards formed a living shield around Vivian and the children. Not because Marcus ordered them, because they chose to. Alaric stared in disbelief. "What are you doing?" One veteran captain answered quietly. "We spent years believing the throne protected the kingdom." He looked toward Vivian. "Today we remembered. She protected our future first." Across the hall, the visiting Alpha Kings rose simultaneously. King Aldrin Ironclaw drew his sword. For my son, Queen Helena Frostvale stepped beside him. For my daughter, King Orion Stormfang followed. For every child she ever loved. One ruler after another joined them, not as political allies, as grateful parents. Alaric slowly realized the truth. He had not invaded one kingdom. He had united them. General Magnus launched one final desperate attack. Marcus met him in the center of the hall. One strike, one decisive clash. Magnus's sword shattered. The broken blade skidded across the marble floor. Helens followed. Marcus lowered his weapon. "It ends." General Magnus looked around. Every extremist had dropped their arms. Not defeated by fear, defeated by purpose. Alaric backed toward the ruined doorway. "This changes nothing," Marcus answered calmly. "It changes everything." Royal guards surrounded the extremists. No further bloodshed followed. Justice would be delivered by law, not vengeance. As dawn's first light streamed through the shattered palace windows, the children slowly stepped away from Vivian. Little Princess Mira looked up at Marcus. "May we still call her mother?" Marcus smiled through tears. He crossed the hall, stopped before Vivian, then before every king and queen gathered beneath the broken skylight. The Alpha King bowed his head. "My greatest mistake was believing leadership begins with power." He looked toward the children gathered around her. "It begins with love." The hall remained silent. not because anyone disagreed, because every ruler present knew they had just witnessed the beginning of a different kind of empire. One built, not by conquest, but by compassion. The battle was over. No victory cries echoed through the grand hall. No triumphant banners were raised. Only the quiet breathing of frightened children, slowly realizing they were safe. Broken weapons rested across the marble floor. Shattered stained glass scattered beneath the morning light. Royal guards escorted the captured extremists away in silence. No one celebrated violence. They celebrated survival. Vivian moved first, not toward the throne, toward the children. She knelt beside Prince Elias, gently brushing dust from his sleeve. "Are you hurt?" He smiled through trembling lips. "No." "You came before I could be afraid." She embraced him briefly before turning to Princess Seraphine, who still clung tightly to her hand. "It is over," Vivian whispered. "You can breathe now." The little princess nodded. "I was never afraid while you were here." One by one, every royal heir gathered around her once more. Some laughed, some cried, some simply rested their heads against her shoulders. The rulers watched quietly. None attempted to interrupt. For the first time, they understood that this was not ceremony. It was family. Marcus remained motionless several steps away. His black royal armor bore deep cracks from the battle. Blood stained one gauntlet where he had intercepted Alaric's blade. The wound hardly registered. His attention never left Vivian. He remembered every moment he had misunderstood her. Every council meeting where he wished she would become more politically ambitious. Every occasion he had mistaken quiet compassion for quiet weakness. The realization weighed heavier than any armor. Elder Rowan, the oldest member of the Moon Council, stepped into the center of the hall carrying the ancient scroll of judgment. His voice filled the chamber. "Duke Alaric Thorn, you orchestrated an assault upon the gathering of heirs. You endangered the future of every allied kingdom. You sought to ignite another generation of war." Alaric lifted his chin. "I sought strength." "No," the elder answered calmly. "You sought control." "They are not the same." The council unanimously pronounced judgment. Alaric would spend the remainder of his life imprisoned within the Moon Bastion, forbidden from holding title, command, or political influence ever again. General Magnus Dreadmore stepped forward next. He lowered his broken sword before the assembled rulers. "I chose hatred because I believed fear preserved kingdoms." King Aldrin Ironclaw looked toward him. "And what do you believe now?" Magnus slowly turned toward the children standing beside Vivian. "I believe kingdoms survive only when children do," the elder nodded. "You surrendered before the final blow. You will spend the rest of your life rebuilding the border villages destroyed by your campaigns. You will protect the people you once threatened." Magnus bowed deeply. "I accept." Finally, Lady Celeste Voss approached. Her confidence had vanished. Her elegant posture had disappeared. She looked toward Vivian with tears in her eyes. "I spent years mocking your kindness. I believed compassion distracted rulers." She lowered her head. "I never realized it united them." Vivian stepped forward. She did not speak with anger. She did not seek humiliation. "Then let today become the first day you measure greatness differently." Celeste closed her eyes. "I will." Justice ended, not through revenge, through responsibility. As the rulers slowly dispersed across the hall, Marcus walked toward Vivian. Each step felt heavier than the last. The children instinctively moved aside. They seemed to understand this moment belonged to someone else. Marcus stopped before her, then, before every Alpha King, every Luna Queen, every prince, every princess, every noble, and every royal guard, The Alpha King of Ravencrest removed his crown. He placed it carefully upon the marble floor. Next came his ceremonial sword. Finally, he lowered himself onto both knees before Vivian. An audible gasp swept through the hall. No Alpha King had knelt before another living soul in generations. Marcus lowered his head. "I declared you unworthy." His voice trembled, when the truth was, I was the one who failed to see. Silence surrounded him. You built peace where I searched for power. You healed children while I negotiated borders. You united kingdoms long before I understood what unity truly meant. A single tear struck the marble beneath him. I asked whether kindness could lead an empire. He looked up at her. Today I learned kindness was leading it all along. Vivian's eyes glistened. She had imagined this conversation many times. In none of those dreams had Marcus knelt. She reached toward him, not to lift the crown, to lift him. You never stopped trying to protect our people, she said softly. We simply protected them in different ways. Marcus shook his head. You protected their future. I only recognized it when I nearly lost it. Little Princess Mira suddenly tugged gently on Vivian's sleeve. Mother. Kings are not supposed to stay on the floor forever. Soft laughter rippled through the hall. Even Marcus smiled. Vivian extended both hands. Come home. He accepted them. She raised him to his feet. The children immediately surrounded both of them. Prince Rowan grinned. Now you finally understand. Marcus laughed quietly. I certainly do. King Orion Stormfang stepped forward first. He drew his sword. Instead of pointing it toward Marcus, he rested its tip gently upon the marble. One by one, every visiting ruler followed. Dozens of royal swords lowered together. It was not surrender. It was respect. King Aldrin spoke for them all. Today, every kingdom witnessed the greatest act of leadership. He looked toward Vivian. Not conquest, compassion. The rulers bowed together, not before Ravencrest, before the woman every royal heir had chosen to call mother. Marcus turned toward the assembled children. I cannot erase the years I misunderstood her, he said quietly. But from this day forward, the kingdom will never mistake compassion for weakness again. The children erupted into joyful applause. Their laughter filled every corner of the palace. For the first time in generations, the grand hall no longer sounded like the seat of power. It sounded like home. 7 days later, the kingdom of Ravencrest welcomed a sunrise unlike any in its history. The palace bells rang across every valley, not to announce war, not to summon a council, but to celebrate peace. Delegations from every allied kingdom gathered once more inside the grand courtyard. This time, were no speeches prepared to defend power. Only hearts ready to honor it. The children arrived first. Princes and princesses from every royal house crossed the courtyard laughing together. No royal protocol separated them. No ancient rivalry divided them. They ran toward Vivian exactly as they had 1 week before. Only now, no one tried to stop them. Marcus watched quietly. A warm smile replaced the solemn expression that had so often defined his reign. He no longer saw a Luna overlooked by the court. He saw the woman who had quietly become the heart of an entire generation. Elder Rowan stepped forward, carrying an ancient silver circlet adorned with moonstones. For generations, he declared, this crown has represented the Luna of Ravencrest. He paused. Today, it shall represent something greater. With reverent hands, he placed the circlet upon Vivian's head. Moonlight shimmered across the silver despite the morning sun. A gentle breeze swept through the courtyard. Even the wolves resting beside the royal guards lifted their heads peacefully. The elder smiled. From this day forward, Luna Vivian Ashmore shall forever be known as Mother of every kingdom. Thunderous applause echoed from every corner of the palace. The visiting rulers bowed together, not because tradition required it, because gratitude did. Marcus stepped beside Vivian and gently took her hand. I once believed a kingdom was protected by walls, armies, and treaties. He looked toward the children playing together beneath the palace gardens. You taught me that kingdoms endure because someone chooses to love the next generation. His voice softened. And no one has ever done that better than you. Vivian smiled through grateful tears. Peace is never built in council chambers alone. It begins every time a child feels safe. That afternoon, the rulers signed a new covenant, not a military alliance, a promise. Every kingdom would establish sanctuaries, schools, and healing centers for children affected by war. The initiative would be guided jointly by Ravencrest and the Allied Crowns. Its official name reflected the woman who had inspired it, the Vivian Covenant. As evening settled beneath a brilliant full moon, the royal heirs gathered around Vivian one final time. Some hugged her, some laughed, some simply whispered, "Thank you, Mother." Marcus wrapped one arm gently around her shoulders. They watched the children disappear into a future no longer shaped by fear, only hope. If Duke Alaric had succeeded, another generation would have inherited hatred instead of compassion. Do you believe someone like him deserved a second chance after trying to sacrifice innocent children for power? Or are there choices that can never be forgiven? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable werewolf romance stories filled with redemption, courage, and the enduring power of love.